Hello and welcome back. This is MC1 Gamer bringing you another video for, could be Age of Sigmar, could be Frostgrave, could be Bolt Action, could be just about any game you can think of. This is mostly going to be for Warhammer-esque stuff. This is a Citadel wood. You know, it's a little dark, so I'm going to go ahead and just move this around. It has 3 of these trees that can be removed, and it has a base that is plastic with all kinds of various different elements, some roots, fallen branches, rock features. It's based black, so it's kind of hard to see exactly what's going on here. But the main purpose of this video is looking for alternatives to this particular base, and specifically as it involves the new Sylvaneth battle tome for Age of Sigmar that has been released over the past month, and the need for lots of these, because there's a mechanic in the that's part of the specifically part of the actual army itself, the faction itself, that is tied to what's called the Sylvaneth Wildwood, which is anywhere from 1 to 3 of these bases. And there's lots of options for you to place these on the board, with certain limitations, proximity to, for instance, other features on the board. But even so, you have other terrain pieces. Even so, there you could have potentially, if all things working perfectly, you could have 10 of these bases on the table that you've placed that are tied to your army and various different powers and abilities and different synergies, the mechanics that make you able to do what you can do. You could have more than those. So simply using these bases is going to be kind of expensive. These run about 20-25 bucks, even with good discounts, and that's a lot if you're going to get that many woods. So looking for some alternatives might be a good idea. I have 4 of these bases. I don't know if I'm going to keep them, and I've actually been converting up another 6 or 8 of these bases that I can use with just about any of the trees that I have. So here's what I thought. First of all, there's a lot of stuff that's been coming out fairly recently revolving around the battle boards. Now, the battle boards are not just basically flat. They have contours, they have hills built into them. Some of them are flat, some of them are not. But I particularly like battle mats, especially for the relative cost to what these battle boards are. They have a lot more ease to transport. So I like these mouse pad-like battle mats that, for instance, you would see from, say, Frontline Gaming, the Fat Mats, and various others. So I think it's Game Mats, EU. There's a lot of different ones, and they're really good quality. Now, I'm not talking about the vinyl mats because I'm not really digging the vinyl mats, but the mouse pad mats are really nice quality. And the thing I like about them the most is that they kind of, they're not, they sit nice and flat on any surface, and they have all this great detail. And they print such incredible pictures that you can institute into your game. Now, I know this is like a single shot here of this Citadel wood, but when I looked at some of these mats, like for instance a swamp mat or some of the grassy fields, I thought, wouldn't it be great to have one of these to replace this? And if it was a modular board, and a board that had contours, dips and valleys and whatnot, it would be something that would hug that particular board. So let's just remove this for the time being, and remove these trees, and let me show you what I came up with. I came up with this. All right, so that is from the Fat Mat Swamp set. Now, I bought a 4x4 mat that was rolled up, came in a nice zipper bag, and I actually contacted Frontline and said, hey, these are great mats, but I'm really looking to get something that's kind of molded out in a particular pattern. Could you cut this for me? If you're going to, maybe it'd be a product line that you might want to use, I'll be happy to pay for it, and I'll showcase it on my show. And they said, we're really not equipped to go do that. I guess there's, there have to be a real need for them to kind of try, mass produce something like this. But what he did say was, you're welcome to go and buy a mat and cut it out. And at first I thought maybe he was being flippant, but he wasn't. He had a point. I could just buy that mat and then cut it out. I don't have to purchase a new product that they make. So I did. And as I said, I bought a 4x4 mat, and I figured that this was about roughly about 10, maybe 10 and a quarter inches across. I think it's about 7 to 8, depending on the width where you're talking. And I mapped it out that in the 4x4 board, the 4x4 fat mat, I get about 12 to 15 roughly. Depending, it could be more depending on how you formulate, the angles. Some of these contours, sometimes they'll fit in different ways, and you might be able to squeeze an extra one or two. And I did. I purchased one of these, and I think it came out great. Now I have a couple of different angles. You'll see a couple of these. All right, so this is opposite of that one. And the way I did it was, I kind of sketched out the outline of a regular Citadel wood, and I just kept on cutting until it came out like that. And look how pretty that is. I mean, that is a nice looking mat. It's got rock formations. It even has, in some of them, the hint of like ancient ruins that has been, swallowed up by maybe the swamp. It has different colors to denote maybe some of the swampy areas. Lots of greenery, various different types of dead leaves. I think these are great. They were certainly great as a full gaming mat, but I basically cut out with as efficiently as possible, and I came out with a bunch of these. This many. And this many. I came out with, I think, 15 or 16 of these in a 4x4 mat, and it cost me, with shipping, $50. That's a steal. If you're playing a Sylvaneth army, even if you just want to have a bunch of these on the table and you're not even dealing with Age of Sigmar, or you're not playing Age of Sigmar, the value you get in something like this is tremendous. If you're playing that game, you can drink. This is mousepad material, so it will adjust if it's on a hill. It'll fit the contours of the game board that you're playing on. And if you're playing Sylvaneth, even better. They're exactly the shape footprint of a Sylvaneth, of a Citadel wood, and you can adjust these as you wish, fit them as you wish on the table. And if you want to use the same trees from the Sylvaneth, from the actual Citadel woods, you can if you have them, or if you can find them. Or, in my case, I'm actually going to be doing some 3D printing of similar woods to these. They're going to be like kind of haunted-ish, woods, so they'll actually work really nicely. Or you can even use what a lot of people use. If they're not actual Citadel trees, you can use from HO train shops or whatever, the scaling of the collector, the train collectors that have long learned and practiced and perfected various different types of terrain techniques. These are trees I purchased from a local shop that, people were into the locomotive collecting, and, I put them on some MDF bases. They're not fully complete, but they just work well. They mesh really nicely with these cutouts. So you can drop those onto the table, and they'll look fantastic with these trees or with the finished product of the actual haunted trees. Now, like I said, I've got 15 or 16 of these. That's more than enough for me to use for just one game with Sylvaneth. In fact, I'm probably going to be using it in quite a number of fashions for the various different events that I run as a tournament organizer, and some of the narrative campaigns that I'm running. But in addition to all of that, I have all these extra scraps. So these are the leftovers. One 4x4 board, one 4x4 playmat, and I cut these up to look a little bit more interesting. I curved some of the squares, and I've got about another, 6? Yeah, 6 of various different sizes, and this one I probably could cut into 2 or 3. These are various different types of the footprints of trees. Now, I know some people really like the modeling and the hobby aspect of building out terrain. Maybe you're into that. Great. I am. I love it. I'm really into it in a big way, but I'm into painting my own models, and I'm also into playing a lot more. The terrain is kind of a tertiary, third on the tier of importance to me. And although it's important, the thing that I do spend some time with, I don't spend a tremendous amount of time, and at least not in comparison to the other two. So having something that's a shortcut or a convenience, especially something that still looks good, is important to me. And I'm sure it's important to people at events to be able to see these types of things and not think that they just look really cheesy. So this is saving me a whole ton of work. It's something I can bring, very convenient for me to bring to a game if I'm playing my Sylvaneth army, or if I'm just setting up a game with some friends, if it doesn't have to be an event. If I'm just setting up some of these for a game with Sylvaneth, bring my stack, put it in a box, put it in a bag. It's easy to store. The stuff bends pretty easily and reforms to a flat surface. It's not terrible. It's gonna, it's mouse pad material. So it's just great stuff. So if you're looking for a solution as a Sylvaneth player, or just as somebody who's looking for some really cool looking terrain that you can put out on the board, and just make sure you have a nice looking board to match the really cool looking miniatures that you have, or even to match some of the really nice battle mats that maybe you've been purchasing or collecting. This is one way to go. The only caveat to all this is that if you have a swamp board, this looks like a swamp board. So if you have this exact same mat in a 6x4, for instance, for a regular game, this is not that solution. So that's the only detraction I can think of. But hey, there's lots of other types of grassy boards. If you happen to have that board, or you happen to want a board like that, get a different one from the Frontline Gaming. They have a variety of different ones, grassy fields and whatnot. Or you go to a different company. If you're playing an event and you bring this and you happen to be on a fat mat, be aware. You're just gonna have to find a way to kind of fudge it, or figure it out. And if you're playing up against it, don't be a purist when it comes to the hobby. It's an expensive hobby, and I'd rather spend personally more money on my models, certainly more time and money on my paint. But if you're coming up against something like this, don't freak out and say, well, it's not an official Citadel wood, it's not a GW official. No, it's just like it's not an official battle board that you're playing on. It's a battle mat or a surface or whatever. There's a lot of flexibility here. It's not that big of a deal. If you're going into GW shop to play, maybe that might be a little bit of a different situation. They have different restrictions on what you can bring into their store. You better speak to the store manager. But in your local, friendly game store, your local flag, or your own basement game, who cares? So this, if you're looking for a shortcut for $50, this is, each one of these GW boxes is 20 to $25 plus tax, plus potentially shipping if you're paying shipping. And each one of these, it cost me a fraction of that. $50 for 16 of these or 15 of these, and 6 more scraps. I got a good solid 21, 22 terrain features with the same cost. So there you go. There's a hobby tip. Have a great day, everybody.